Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you my Ryder Cup show. I'm going to preview the course. I'm going to break down the players. We've got so much analysis. We're going to break down from a DFS perspective. There is a lot of DFS options to play this week. You also got the betting side. So I'm going to dive into all that. First off and foremost, thank you for stopping by. Hoping to cover this in about 30 to 45 minutes, but it's going to give you everything you need to know to help you pick your teams from a DFS perspective, because that's going to be a little different than usual. And then also give you some ideas on the betting side. Okay, let's do this. First off, just a little house cleaning. I have been promoting PrizePicks. I think it's a great way if you are either newer to DFS or feel like you just are not winning at all. PrizePicks really helps and gives you an advantage, I think, because you're really not betting against thousands of entries. You're betting against their projections, and you can do it on any sport that you like. You can combine sports. Of course, I'm always going to give you the PGA picks when they have it, but I'm out today because I did not give you Monday Night Football, and it's a good thing because I missed on, well, I hit 3 out of 4. I missed Aaron Rodgers hitting 279 yards, so that's neither here or there. But also there's a promotion running right now, and if you go to PrizePicks, sign up, and then just put in, when they ask you for a promo code, put Golf Guru. They're going to give you a 100% match of whatever you deposit up to $100. And again, it's just picking the over-under on all different areas. So from a football perspective, you could do how many receptions, how many, who gets how many rushing touchdowns, how many catching touchdowns, how many yards thrown. There's so many different ones. And I'm going to give you for Thursday night game who I like and who I've already put in. All right, and the last thing on that is I did for the Fortinet Championship. Did give you some picks. I did miss, so this is the first time from a golf side that I actually missed. But it didn't help that John Rahm came down sick the day before and still played, which is a good thing. But of course missed the cut. And he ended up shooting a 72 the first day, and then I believe he shot like a 71. I think he was 1 under for the tournament. Hit the other two. I hit Mav. I hit Kevin Na, who then he went terrible on Friday and missed the cut. And then Emiliano Grillo actually hit right on the number. So if you hit on the number, of course, I had it over that I thought he would shoot a 71 or worse. And he got a birdie on the last hole to squash that. But it didn't matter. John Rahm killed me right off the bat. So we'll keep trying on that. But I'm 2 out of 3 on the golf side. And then last but not least, for your Thursday night game, if you do want to play, here's the picks that I'm going with. And I'll tell you my 2 favorites, because you don't have to pick 4. You can pick 2. You have to pick at least 2 guys and give over-under projections on whatever stat you want. I like to go with the 4 guys because it increases my odds, and then I actually lock it in for the 4. It's called like the Flex 4. And then it gives you a 10x multiplier. So if you put in $100, you can win $1,000. If you put in $10, you can win 100. So, anyways, so on and so forth. So right now, Thursday night course, we got Houston going up against Carolina. Even though Tyrod Taylor is down. Of course, they got Davis Mills that's filling in. Brandon Cooks, I like him to catch over, catch 6 balls, but 5.5 receptions. Really, he's their only main weapon downfield. I think he had 14 targets, and he's beaten that 5.5 each. I think he has 6 receptions and 9 receptions for the first 2 weeks. DJ Moore, same thing. One of their main weapons downfield. He's been taking the lion's share of the targets, and I think he's also beat, if I remember correct, the 5.5. So I like those 2 from a catching reception side. Christian McCaffrey, you just got to get 1 touchdown out of him, and you beat that number. So that's actually one of my favorites. And then my next is Sam Darnold, who is, I don't say he's a super mobile quarterback, but he has scrambled for some yards. And I think Houston defense can make him scramble at times. So you just need him to get 7 rush yards, and you beat that. So if you're new to it, just go with those 2, pick the overs, and you're good to go. But if you want to increase your multiplier, pick all 4 of these or pick some of them at yours. But that's what I went with, and that's my prize picks. Okay. Last thing before we get into, of course, the Ryder Cup and why you're here is just a real quick recap. I actually did really well from a DFS perspective and also a betting perspective. But I think it's my first time for my top Fab 5 picks that I picked Max Homa, who came in first. Mad McNeely came in second. Mito came in third. I believe Will Z came in 11th. And then Simpson fell apart on Sunday and came in 30th. But neither here or there. If you played that lineup and then threw in a cheapie you were doing very well. I only put in, actually, didn't do a whole lot of DFS from a classic large. I only put 6 teams in a large GPP. Got paid out on 3 of them, actually made money. So that was good. And then from a betting perspective, I've been talking to you guys quite a bit. If you've been with me for a while, that Max Homa is a great guy to bet. We were getting amazing odds on him, up in 100, area, 100 to 1. Of course, we had 65 to 1, but I hit that. And it was awesome. Max, of course, is an amazing player. Just remember, if you're a little newer to golf or don't watch, when Max is on the West Coast, of course, he went to school up North California, is from California. He loves those POA greens. I told you guys all this ahead of time. Even if he's not showing form, not saying that he was terrible form, but the guy is either going to be top 10 or he's missing a cut. That's just what you get out of Max Homa. So always bet Max, especially in that kind of field. I think he's a great bet. Okay, that's enough about the Fortinet. I don't think I want to spend any more time on that. We are here for the Ryder Cup, and it's been we've been waiting 3 years for this. It's been a while, of course. The last Ryder Cup was over in France, and we got our butts kicked. And then I actually was at, I believe it was in 2004 at Oakland Hills, and that was over before it began. And that was, of course, the Hal Sutton pairing of Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson. That just it went sideways. But anyways, I love the Ryder Cup. It's one of my favorite events. I think it's, even if you're not a golf fan, I think so many people get into this. It's just so unique that you have such an individual sport that becomes a team sport. You're not playing for yourself. You're not playing for the money. You are literally playing for a point. You're playing for your country. And it's awesome. I mean, just the emotions, the fans, everything. So I'm super psyched. Of course, we are leaving wine country and we are heading over to beer country. We're heading to Kohler, Wisconsin. Of course, it's at Whistling Straits, and it's the Straits course. And of course, with that name, Whistling, it is coastal. It is on Lake Michigan. Now, if you've never been to Lake Michigan, you cannot see the other side. It is huge. And for me, I live on the other side, on the Michigan side, pretty much almost directly across from Kohler, Wisconsin. And we get winds. We get a lot of wind and in this fall. And they are predicting quite a bit of wind. So we're going to talk a bit about that. I know it is only Tuesday, but it's going to happen either way. It's going to be windy. A little bit about Whistling Straits, of course. It hosted the 2010 and 2015 PGA Championship. It also hosted a senior tour way back in 2007, but nothing, of course, no reason really to look into that. It is a Pete Dye course. It was opened back in 1998. And, it was a flatter kind of ground. They brought a ton of sand and dirt in to really shape this thing to have elevations. It is going to be one of the coolest courses. A little bit like what we saw at Kiowa, just from a visual perspective. It's going to be an awesome watch, is what I'm saying. It is a big boy course. It's a par 71. Right now, they've got a listed official scorecard at 73.55. So almost 7,400 yards, but I think, it can be a little bit bigger, and especially with the wind, it is going to play a lot longer than that. From a fairway perspective, from your grass types, you got kind of a mixed mutt here. You got a bent Poa fescue, cut, real tight. The rough is going to be a little less. So just to give you guys a heads up, if you have, I've been watching, of course, all the coverage, and they've actually widened these fairways to help the U.S. team. And then the rough is actually only at 2.5 inches for quite a ways. To get in that fine fescue, that 4-inch and higher, you've got to get a bit off the beaten path. So generous fairways is going to allow for the bombers, and it's going to help. It's going to help both sides. But of course, I think we have a little more length than they do, so that's a positive note. If you're curious, the greens are a bent grass, it's creeping bent grass. And then, of course, the player field, right? You got the 2 teams of 12, all a little different on how they get selected. You got the Euro side has got the 9 guys that qualify from the point system they have. And then, of course, you had Padre Harrington picking 3 guys, which ended up being experience. It was Lowry, Poulter, and I'm forgetting the last. I think it was Garcia, but it doesn't matter. And then from our side, right, you have the 6 guys that made it in, where I believe it was back when Azinger in 2008 pushed to have more President Cup picks to make it like a 6 and 6. And we'll go into all that team. But of course, if you don't know who the team is, I'm going to go into that. If you kind of just start looking at some, the winning scores, and really just to go back, course is 14.5 points if you're the winning team. If you've not retained a cup, and of course that goes to a tie, 14-14. Whoever has the cup at that time keeps the cup. Of course, you probably hear a ton of coverage. So Euros won 9 out of the last 12 Ryder Cups. last 4 out of 5, and I've got some information more. We'll go into that. The green size here, they are large. They are 7,000, so your typical green size around 5,000. So these are very large slopey greens, so putting and 3-putt avoidance is huge. Number of sandbuggers, there's sand all over the place, so you couldn't even calculate it. It is a sand festivus. So just that's all you need to know. So we're going to need some guys that also can play out of sand. Water comes into play only on one hole. I'm guessing that's Lake Michigan on a couple, on one of the holes, par 3 or whatever. It says there's 3 water hazards, but the one that I know for sure that it could come into play is if you get way wayward on some of the fairways. I'm guessing from a stent meter side I don't have, but probably going to keep it more towards an 11. Again, you got to think of a lot of this. This course looks like a course that you would play at the Open. It's just going to play more like the Open this week than you saw when Morikawa won the Open recently. So I'm guessing they're going to keep the greens a little slower because of the winds that are predicted, and it's going to, like I said, either way, you're going to have some kind of wind to deal with off Lake Michigan, but they're looking at some 20 to 25, 30-mile gusts that could happen. So, of course, from a course defense, you see there, wind. It's going to be very prevalent. There is a bit of elevation here. All that means is you're going to be hitting some shots above you, below you. You've got sand, as I mentioned, all over, and you've got some weird kind of open sand bunkers where if you're on the wrong side of that bunker, you can't even probably go at the pin. So that's going to be something. Again, I already mentioned the large greens. And then, of course, the length of the course. There's some really long par 4s. We're going to go into all the holes. But, in the par 3s. And then just a couple notes. So if you're already starting to think about the guys that you want to play, Justin Thomas, of course, if you add his Ryder Cup and President's Cup record, he's actually 6-0 in the 4-ball, which that is alternate shot. And then if you look at DJ, of course, he had the 2010 PGA Championship in his grasp. And then, I had that 2-stroke penalty, which he lost by 2 shots. And again, remember, he didn't play it as a sand trap. And that's why they kind of changed the rules, because it just looked like sand that was just, out there. And they technically, at that time, were classified as sand. So his club did touch. They gave him a 2-stroke penalty. He lost. And then, of course, back in 2015, I'm also going to go over the finishes and stroking analysis from the 2015 PGA Championship. But he ended up T7th there. So from an American side, there's a couple guys that's had some, decent from either their record at the Ryder or, of course, history at Whistling Straits. All right. So now let's take a little step back and just look at what's been going on. Of course, you're going to hear all kinds of narratives. I'm going to talk about them some here, but just give you the facts and the information. Of course, I stole a lot of this from the Golf Channel because I've been watching a ton of it, but I get to summarize it for you guys if you don't have the time to sit and watch as much golf coverage as I did. But in short, if you want to look at just the past 5 years, again, I mentioned we've been dominated. We did actually win in 2008. That was the last time it was in Minnesota. That's when Azinger kind of created that whole pod thing. I also had 6 rookies, which we have this time. So we're going to talk a bit about that. But of course, we got Trounced in France, Hazeltine. That's the one we won. And then, of course, we lost at Glen Eagles, Medina, and Celtic Manor. You can see those two were a little bit closer. But yeah, overall, we've lost, as I mentioned, the last 4 out of 5 and the last 9 out of 12. And, if you want my opinion, I think it's a good thing. And I agree that, with Tiger Woods finally kind of, not in this event. I also got Phil Mickelson. A couple guys that were, not easy to play with. I think, the guys maybe played a little different with those guys. I think having some young blood coming in that hasn't had the, some of the butt kickings that we've taken is a good thing. So overall, I mean, and we're going to get into a lot of the experience and wind. I think we have a pretty solid team. And of course, on paper, we should win, but it's just, this is everything to the Euros. This Ryder Cup means the world to the European Tour. And so that's why they play not only for their team, but they're playing for the Euro Tour. It's very prevalent for them. So we look at what's going on. So from an experience, so I've got a couple of things I want to talk about experience versus ranking. So right now, of course, the Euro team's coming over to the States, and they want to make sure they had guys that had experience. So if you look at, first off, just from an average world ranking, we're stomping them, right? We have 8 out of the top 10 guys. They just got John Rahm. And so you can see that in the average world rank. Their team averages around 30th. We're averaging around, 9th.
If you look at the average age, they're around 35 years old. Our guys are around 29. And the number of rookies, right? They have 3 rookies. Believe off the top of my head, that's Lowry, Hovland, and Wiesberger, I believe. And then we've got 6 rookies, right? That was pretty much, I think, all the picks, except the Shambo qualified. But we'll go into that further. And again, a little more on experience. If you just want to understand, the team on Europe, they've got guys that have been there 38 times. We've got guys that have only played in 12 Ryder Cups total. You've got, previous 5+ appearances. So you got guys that have been in 5 Ryder Cups in a row, or, at least 5 Ryder Cups. You got 4 guys that have done that. You can see their overall record. We're about, 50-50, and you can see they're 75 to 55. And then, total points on that team. So the guys that have played, they've got almost 90 points, where our whole team combined has only got 25. And funny enough, Sergio Garcia, just on his own, has 25.5 points. So that just gives you a little understanding of experience. But we, of course, on paper, we've got the talent. But will they come as a team, right? And then now we're going to go on some player analysis. I'm going to give you guys my top 5 picks from each side after we go through the analysis. But just to let you know, we do have out the pods, if you're right. So again, I remember the Azinger back in 08 kind of came up with this whole methodology of putting guys together, not so much on their game style, but more on their personality style. And so, I don't really know if he's kind of coined the names and why he put these guys together. He has not released that, but just so you can see who's in the pods, your pod 1 or group 1, you got Koepka, Finau, Berger, Harris, English. Group 2, you got JT, Jordan, and which makes sense, right? You're going to have these 2 guys paired together on a lot. You're going to have, of course, Cantlay and Xander are going to be paired a lot, played in the President's Cups together. But to finish up Group 2, you got DeChambeau, Scotty Scheffler, one of the rookies. And then Group 3, you got DJ, Colin, and then I already mentioned Xander. So from a European side, right, I mentioned, I believe the picks were Ian, Shane, and Garcia, right? So he went with some experience. The rest of the guys earned their way on. Victor's a rookie. Like I said, Lowry's a rookie, and I believe Wiesberger. But they don't have those guys potted up. But they've already got certain guys that play together. Typically, I'm trying to think. Was it Fleetwood and Molinari, which is not on the team, did some major damage in France. So yeah, there's some guys that's a little different. So to try to figure out who they're going to pair together right now, I don't know. But okay. With that said, let's go jump over. Let's do some analysis on these guys. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, and then we'll come back and I will summarize the guys that I'm going with and even talk about from a betting perspective. Okay, so just to start this whole thing off, I think it's good for some people that are new, just some quick information. So what you're looking at here is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday of golf, and you've got Friday and Saturday. They start out with a 4-ball, which is you got 2 guys on each team playing their own ball, and whoever has a better score, they're going to take that score. And that's the beginning. And then they're going to come back in the afternoon with what they call foursomes. And really, that's just alternate shot. And all that means is the same thing. You got 2 guys paired together. One guy hits the tee shot. One guy hits the approach. One guy makes the putt. And then, away you go. And there's got to be so many, because the way things could go, there's got to be so many tee shots and all that kind of thing. So if you watch like the WGC Dell Match Play or whatever, it's very similar. And so they're going to do that for Friday and Saturday. And then on Sunday, they're going to come out and each player is going to go up against, whoever they match, and they're going to play a singles, typical one-day event. And this is the interesting thing. So everybody's always said that's where the U.S. should dominate, right, is in the single matches. And it hasn't been so because the way the European team has always looked at it is, yeah, I might not be able to beat Tiger Woods 4 days in a row, but I can definitely beat Tiger Woods on 18 holes. And so just because you think one guy should just, smoke another guy, it doesn't always work out that way. And there's a lot of momentum. There's that stubbornness. There's the guys who can make the putts like the Kisners, it's not on this, but, just guys that can get under people's skin. So, and what we're going to have to look at from a DFS perspective is we really got to kind of hone in on guys that are going to play in all of this, right? So everybody's going to play in the singles, but there's going to be certain guys that get sat out, especially in the alternate shot. So we got to kind of look at that and think about that when you're putting your DFS, because it is from a DFS perspective, right? They're doing kind of a captain that you got to pick. That's like a 1x multiplier, 1x the cost, but you get 1x the points, and then you got to pick the other 5 guys. So it's kind of like in a showdown mode if you want to look at it that way, but it's for the whole 3 days. And so you just got to make sure you got even, first thing is figure out the guys that are going to be out there as much as possible. And so I've got my own opinions on that. So I'll make sure I kind of cover that. And then next, I just want to talk about this right off the bat because this is influencing a lot of what I'm deciding and who I'm going with. So yes, I already mentioned where you're going to want to pull is Wind Finder. Look at this Sheboygan breakwater. So this is the lighthouse right below the course. I think it's going to give you the best information of what's going on out there from a wind perspective. And of course, we're going to scroll down and look at Friday. And so if you look at right off the gate, as this kind of gets kicking, you can see by the afternoon, we're up to 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts coming off. This is going to be a steady wind going on, especially for alternate shot. And also, so it's very key if you're just thinking from a Ryder Cup, like the beginning, whoever gets off to usually a very good start in the 4-ball kind of match is typically the guys that win the whole thing. It's been shown time and time again. So don't think that, all we got to do is hold on to, keep it close until the singles. It's not the way it works out. But long story short, back to the weather, it's going to be windy. If you look at Saturday all day, you've got between, 15 to 20 steady blow. And then you got up to over 30 mile an hour winds on Saturday. And also it's going to be cool. So it's going to be, again, from a European side, I think a little bit advantage just from a wind and temperature perspective. And then Sunday, it looks like it's going to calm down. Now, that's what's predicted now. You're still going to have wind, but nothing like what we're going to see on the first 2 days when they're doing a lot of the foursomes and also the 4-ball. Okay, so just keep an eye on that is what I'm telling you, especially if they are doing just showdown one-day events, which I'm sure they are. But I know right now what you're looking at from a DraftKings DFS perspective, that is for the 3 days is what they're looking at. All right. So let's do a little more of the course breakdown, and we're going to kind of move through this process as I usually do. There's some things that will be a little different. But if you want to just get an understanding, how many holes out there in the past has there been opportunities? And so if you look at the green, you've got actually 6 holes that are birdieable, and then you've got 6 holes that typically where bogeys will show up. So it's pretty evenly laid, and you can look on the front. You've got three holes that are very that should give you a good chance to get a birdie. And the same. And just so you guys know from a course setup, they're going to make this more, how do I put this, easier than like a PGA championship. They want the action. They want the birdies. They want the rah-rah from the crowd. Of course, we've got the crowd on our side. So, this could get a little better. There's some of these holes that are almost drivable. There's this 355 par 4 that, like DeChambeau could go for. Some of the guys. You got another one at 361 here, number 10. Trying to see. There's a long one. You got this one at 397, which could play a little shorter. It's all depending which way the wind. Another thing from the wind is funny. It's going to be blowing during the practice sessions one way, and it looks like as soon as the actual event starts that the wind's going to shift, what I was showing you there. So just again, that's going to be a factor. If you want to understand what shows up at this course, putting is number 1 key off the tee and then approach. Ball striking and short game are pretty equal. 2 are going to come in very handy. Again, top 10 finishers in the past here. Again, this is pulling up mostly the 2015 PGA championship information. You gotta make your hay on the par 5s, manage the par 3s and par 4s. You can see 3-putt avoidance is key. I mentioned these are big greens, a lot of slope. But again, I look at it from this perspective. There shouldn't be a lot of 3-putts to worry about in these kind of formats. Now, in the singles matches, could be something that could happen. You can see you got to hit the greens in reg. Funny enough, I thought this was interesting. Sand saves is not that high for the winners, but you can see it's somewhat prevalent for the guys that finish up top. Fairways, again, from the winner, you can go a little wayward. But not too crazy. But the guys at top 5s, you need to hit some fairways. If you want to understand the hole compositions, you've got this one crazy long par 5, 6 to 650. You got 3 par 5s that go in the 550 to 6, and then we've got 3 par 4s, 500 plus, so they're gets into that distance. You got 1 at 450 to 500. Then you got some, I'd say somewhat gettable You got these three here, the 350 to 400, and then you got 3, 4 to 450. A couple long par threes. I think that's going to be a bit of the course defense. And it's something that they're going to navigate. And then one at 175, and then you got a shorter one. The thing that really shows up here big time is this 200 plus out. Of course, you got, as I mentioned, you got some long par fours. You got some of these long par fives that people are going to try to go within two. 36% of the approach shots are coming in 200 plus. So you need really good ball strikers. And then the next area that really shows up is 75 to 100, 6% of the shots. So now you got, the guys that are, again, on these par fives, didn't get all the way there, but are going to need hitting that from that area. I think that's really it. You can see driving accuracy doesn't show up a ton here, but driving distance does. Again, back to the distance. Okay. With that said, and again, all this is being done within Fantasy National. Again, highly recommended if you are doing your own analysis and want something from a golf perspective. I think it's the best out there. Always give it a little bit of plug because I show a bit of it through here. The model that I created for this is I put driving distance is not number one, but is the first thing I put in at 20%. So it's pretty heavily weighted. Ball striking is next at 20%. That proximity for 200 plus, I put at 10%. Putting is big time. I showed you 15%. I even threw in 3-putt avoidance, even though I think from the alternate shot and the foursomes shouldn't be an issue, but it could be prevalent. I threw it off the tee again just to bring in the fairways into perspective. So off the tee, of course, is that combination of looking at how far do you hit it, but also are you hitting the fairways. Approach is always key. The guys that stick it close, give yourself those opportunities of 20 feet within. So I got that at 10%. That proximity we saw 75 to 100 at 5. And then around the greens, which kind of brings in the short game aspect at 10%. And then if you click my rank, it's going to pick the top guys at that. And number one guy, just so you know, without any filters, nothing over here. I don't have length of course or nothing, but just looking at the last 12 rounds they have played, which is going to be all the information pretty much from the FedEx Cup. Number one guy, of course, no shocker because of Patrick Cantlay, win the BMW and then, of course, winning the Tour Championship. He was just playing great. Of course, his putter is going to has to be, well, funny enough, is 7, but that must be at the Northern Trust I have to look at. And he didn't putt that great, I guess, at the Tour Championship too, but he just was in fuego at the BMW. But long story short, he comes up number one. Now, the one thing I want to point out, and we're going to go through some of this, is if you see the star lit, it means that these guys with the star lit gain at least a stroke or more in windy as fuck conditions. So when it is super windy, these guys can handle those conditions. And just keep a note of that, and I'm going to go a little bit over that, but I think that is going to be crucial when making some of our decisions on who we want to play. You're going to see also two different same names, but the reason why is that we're getting the salary if you pick them as the captain or if you're just playing them as a regular, flex play or just another option, the 5-player pool. So that's why you see their name twice, and that's why you see the different prices. I just want to call that out. Okay, so let's go look at Cantlay just real quick, just so you can see some of his splits, some of his information. And I think the one course I'm just going to pull up the Open and see how they've done there, just give you that too. So you can see bent is his best putting surface, which these are bent greens. You can see what I was talking about here. He gains almost a stroke and a half on the field in crazy windy conditions. That's that windy AF, as I already stated. If we look at what he's been doing just over the last 3, right? I mean, he's been solid tee to green. As I mentioned, the putter was not as, crazy, gaining, kind of broke the stroke gain putting at 15 strokes. And that was on bent greens. So just side note there. And then let's just go pull up the Open and just see how he's done, because literally I think it's going to kind of show that. I think that's the closest. Also, you know what? I'll pull up Kiowa, the PGA Championship we just had, just to see. So, he's had a 12th back in 2018, a 41st and a miscut. So not too shabby. And then let's pull up the PGA, and he had a 23rd here recently, and that was at Kiowa Island, which this course reminds me quite a bit of Whistling Straits from a, kind of a coastal, from the sand, the fescue. So we'll look at those couple just to kind of just curious. And then also we'll look at the 2015 if he's played there, but he was not there yet. All right. So that's a little more information on Patrick Cantlay for you. Let's move down the board. Let's go look at JT. I'm going to go through each guy for you We've only got 24 guys, so that way there you can see, of course, JT has been struggling with the putter. His worst putting surface is bent over his life, his career. He gains a stroke on the field when it's crazy windy, so that's solid. We kind of look at last few kind of what he's been doing. He just a side note with JT. What I like about JT off the tee, if you remember, of course, at the Players, he worked on hitting some low, teeing the ball low, choking it down a little bit, and hitting that low hook, or even hitting that low fade. So he can hit the knockdown shots, is what I'm saying, and he's comfortable with it. So remember that with some of these guys that, a lot of these guys can. Now, Rory, out of everyone, I think hits the highest ball. Now, can Rory also hit knockdown stingers? I'm sure he can, and he's worked on it. But when I think of wind and not maybe the greatest, I would think of Rory just from how high his ball flight is. Okay, back to, let's go just look at the Open. And, really funny enough, this recent Open, I would not even really consider that because it was perfect conditions for golf. I mean, like I said, when Morikawa won that, I think it would have been a different story if it would have been typical Open conditions. But you can see he's at an 11th, a couple miscuts in a 53rd. So, do what you would want with that. It's not the greatest. And then if we go look at the PGA, he actually had a miscut at Kiowa. I just want to confirm. Yeah, Kiowa Island. That's actually Bermuda greens. That's what I was kind of curious about. I didn't remember. And then back in 2015, though, at Whistling Straits, he did have an 18th. So that's, definitely a positive. And then where was this one in 2000? Quail Hollow, of course, where the Wells Fargo's played. He actually won. So just a side note. All right, that's a little bit on JT. Victor Hovland, we'll go look real quick so you can see. Now, you think with Victor, how steady he is typically off the tee, ball striking. But you can see, funny enough, his, right now, over his life, his career, when it's been super windy, he's not done that well. And the putter is where he kind of struggles. Bent is actually the worst putting surface for him. We kind of just take a look at, his FedEx kind of playoffs. Kind of lost a little bit off tee, which is kind of shocking at the Tour Championship at East Lake. But, gained at the BMW and the Northern Trust. But did gain quite a bit on approach. But you can see the putter has been running pretty cold here over the last 5 events. And if we pull up the Opens for him, he only played in the recent one and had a good showing. But again, I don't really count that. We're not going to really get a lot of information on the PGA because he didn't play in 2015. But he did play at Kiowa. And like I said, I think that is going to be a bit of similarities. He had a 30th. So you could kind of put that in your little hat. All right, moving down the board, of course, Bryson DeChambeau. Again, someone that I think would gain because of his distance in the wind, but actually, when it's windy as a AF, he's actually not good. And you could also makes a little sense, right? The longer, the longer you hit it and how high he hits it, it could be a little bit of trouble. But on a side note, I look at the course that they're playing, and of course, it fits him, and they've made it wider. And I even feel like even if he gets in the heavier fescue, because he's hitting, I've always said this, he has such a sharp downstroke, and he's hitting such a high lofted iron that I still think he's going to be a good play here. So don't let this totally spook you. You can see solid putter. Bent is, whatever, by a skosh would be his second best putting surface. Bermuda gains the most. And if we just go take a look at what's been going on with Bryson, he has, and this is what will make me nervous, he has struggled out of the sand, and of course, you've heard it 1,000 times. He's got a 5-iron shaft into a sand wedge head. I don't know how he can get out and play around the greens with those kind of clubs. Why? I think the stroke when you are playing around the green is so different than a full swing. And I understand his whole concept on why he does what he does. But for around the green, he should just put in a normal 58, 60 degree, whatever it is. And I swear that he would start gaining. Look at this, lost 7 strokes at the U.S. Open around the green. He's just bleeding strokes around the green. The putter, is typically, he's a solid putter. I think he was ranked, I don't remember off the top of my head now. I know for the 2020 season, he was like top 5. For 2021, I don't know where he ended up, to be honest, off the top of my head. But he's a good putter. It's not the putting, it's around the green. So if we go look at kind of his Open experience, I said a 33rd, a miscut, a 51st, and a miscut. So nothing great there. Hence maybe why, again, when we saw what he's done on the windy conditions. And then at Keel Island, he had a 38, so nothing to write home about there. And he didn't play into 2015 at Whistling Straits. So there you go. So with DeChambeau, if the weather conditions were better and there wasn't so much sand, he would be one of my core plays. And I'll let you know right now, he is not one of my core plays. Now, again, I think he can handle this course. It's just I think the wind is going to cause and the sand's going to cause him a problem. All right, let's go look at John Rahm. All right, so of course we saw him at Fortinet. He missed the cut. Padre here, and he was asked about, how's Rahm doing? And he saw him, and he's lifting weights, and he looks great. So there should be no lingering effects of whatever that was. Was it actually a food bug, or did was he just not super amped to be there? Which I was just shocked that he was there. Anyways, he was the only guy out of the whole Ryder Cup teams that showed up there, and he's the #1 player in the world. So I don't know if it was a vacation. I don't know if it was a great if he got paid an appearance fee. But what he said was he was there for competitive golf. He likes competitive golf to keep moving at the pace he was, but actually it kind of backfired on him if you look at it that way. All right, so we're looking at the splits here. Bent, he's positive on all surfaces. Good putter, especially with that new putter that he's put in. Well, not so new now, but once he implemented that kind of that mallet putter, he's been doing amazing. Bent is his second best surface. You can see he gains a hair over a stroke and a half against the field. So he is very viable in crazy windy conditions. Of course, he's been playing amazing. Of course, you're going to see his miscut, but don't even worry about that. But, top tens, it's just been nuts how well he's been playing. You can see the approach on the last few tournaments has been off. So if you are curious, he also didn't putt worth a hoot. That's the first time I've seen him putt like crap. I think his worst putting outing, I'm scrolling back a bit. So, I guess it'd be at the concession. It wasn't the tournament off the top of my head I was thinking of, but that's the first time he's lost strokes putting in a while, I guess is the short of it, but the approach has been a little bit misfire. So something to keep an eye on there. Let's go look at his Open experience. So, of course, he had a third here this year. Which he would have won that thing if he didn't struggle on the opening day. I think he shot either even or a couple over. I don't remember exactly. I just remember he struggled Thursday and then really poured it on. Got better and better as the weekend went. He's had an 11th, one miscut, a 44th at 59. So you can kind of see he's trending in the right direction from the Open perspective. And then let's go look at the PGA Championship. So at Kiawah, he had an 8th. And maybe on both of those. I felt like at the PGA, too, he kind of came out slow and then heated up. And didn't play in 2015 at the Whistling Straits. Okay, moving right along, let's go look at Rory, who is 11th in my model. Just if you're curious, I should probably note that. Pose his best surface, bent. He still gains, but his putting's been a little suspicious. That's barely gaining anything. You can see he does gain over a stroke, 1.3, so we'll just say 1.4. It's almost a stroke and a half in windy conditions. So that high ball flight, doesn't seem to bother him. Again, I'm sure he can choke it down and hit a knockdown. We look at just kind of recent what's going on. His putting has picked up here, so that's a positive. The approach has been a little bit off, especially with that 100-yard kind of shot is what I've noticed where he has struggled. Let's go look at his Open experience. So recently at a 46, so not so great. Miscut 2019. Of course, he won back in 2014. Just going to refresh my brain. That was at the Royal Liverpool, so it was on. We're not too far from him. Let's go back to the Open. So yeah, pretty solid experience, and that shows that he can handle the wind. I guess that's the short of it there. We look at the PGA. He had a 49th here recently at Kiawah, and then 2015 it up at 17th. In 2014 he won, and that was at Valhalla, which was a Ryder Cup. I believe that was the 2008 with Azinger was at Valhalla. Okay, so that's a little bit about Rory for you. Let's go. I don't know why these are split, but let's just go click on Sergio Garcia. Of course, I mentioned, if you watch anything with the Ryder Cup, Sergio Garcia is all about it. Of course, the putter is his nemesis, but bent is his best putting surface. So I always call it his best worst surface. Definitely can handle himself in the wind. The guy is an elite ball striker, so it makes sense on this course. Pretty solid around the green. Has been better, but can be a crazy out of the sand. So someone to think about there. It's the putter that will either make or break him. You can see why I kind of hesitated around the green, because I have seen he's had some issues here or there, but typically it's a very good sand player. Let's just see here. So you see he missed a cut at Northern Trust, but came back with a 6 at the BMW. You see the putter really heated up. And then, of course, ended up middle of the pack for the Tour Championship. He's going to have a lot of open experience, but let's just go kind of scroll. In recent time, nothing to write home about it. His best would have been the recent one. At Royal St. George's, I totally, for whatever reason, was blanking. That's why I had to put that in there. So, okay, back to the Open. The guy's definitely got good Open experience. I mean, it's been a while since he's cracked the top 10. Last 4 years, not as good, but definitely can handle himself in the win, as we saw. Of course, he missed a cut at Kiowa, and then had a 54th here last time he played at Whistling Straits. But again, that's so long ago. So, I don't put a ton of stock. It's kind of funny. He has not had a good success at the PGA in a long time. So, side note on that. All right, moving on. Daniel Berger actually kind of shocked me when I looked at what he can do in the wind. I just didn't expect. So, if you want to know from a putting split, bent is his worst putting surface. POA show over his life has been his best. And it's funny, I always think of Bermuda's what he should do well on. But he gains, we'll just call it almost a stroke and 3/4. So he's one of the best players on the American side when it comes to gaining strokes in heavy, crazy winds. Just keep that as a side note. I wanted to point that out because that was kind of shocking to me, to be honest. I don't know. I just would think of the Texas guys that would be able to take care of that. You can see the putter is what's been his nemesis recently, and typically he's not a bad putter. But for whatever reason, he has been struggling, so that's something to keep an eye on. Been great on approach. Okay, we'll just say okay, gaining pretty much positive off the tee. Let's go look at his Open experience. So, of course, the recent one, but again, that's a hard one to judge. Just did not have the weather, but had an 8th, a miscut, a 27th, and a miscut. His Open experience you can kind of look at as, I give him a C. And then we go look at the PGA. He did play in 2015. It was a miscut. And then most recently at Kiowa at 75th. So, I don't like that because I think those are pretty good comparables. But, over his life, it does show up that he can handle it. So, I'm going to stick with that. Let's go jump on Paul Casey. He ends up around 17th in my model, and it's kind of odd. It's hard to look at because actually it's double on that. So let me see something how that is ranking. Okay, so it's okay. That's fine. Yeah, so see, instead of it should be like 1, 2, but because it's double name, okay. So don't even worry about my rank. I mean, we could see where they're ranked from where they're. All right, Paul Casey, let's go take a look at him. So his best putting surface, and typically what can be his nemesis is the putter, but bent, he's done the best of his life. He does gain over a stroke playing in windy conditions, right? Again, a little bit like Garcia, right? Elite tee to green. It's just whatever the putter, will do. And you can see over his last 10 rounds, that's where he's been hurt, was the putter. Crazy lost almost 7 strokes at the Northern Trust, so that's kind of interesting. So his last 2 events, but did at the WGC St. Jude gained, over 7 strokes. And I believe that is Bermuda. Yeah, TPC Southwind. Okay, let's go look at his Open experience while we're here. It's done well. I mean, I look at that. We're out the bat. If you make the cut, that's pretty good right there. But then have a 15th and 11th. His best showing was an 11th back in 2017. And then let's go look at the PGA real quick. Again, focusing at a 4th at Kiowa, which I think is a good comparable. And then at Whistling Straits previously at a 30th. So definitely somebody to think about from the European side that you might want to roster. Okay, the next guy we come to is Shane Lowry. Let's go jump on him. And if we look at his putting splits, he is positive over his life on bent, pose his best. As you can see, Shane Lowry gains quite a bit of strokes. Of course, a bit of that if you think about the Open that he won in 2019. gaining over 2 strokes, 2.2 if you want to say, in crazy windy conditions. The putter's been, kind of off and on. If we look, that's typically what will hurt him over his career. Good on approach, good around the green. Off the tee too can sneak up. You can see that's been losing strokes to the field when it comes to the driver, which could be an effect. But I think it's gonna be a little different with these wind conditions. If we pull up the Open, of course, I mentioned he had a 12th just recently, but really the one to look at, which was crazy weather, was 2019, and I have to remember, Royal Portrush, and you could see windy as fuck the whole time, and he won it. So something to think about there. Let's go back. If I type in the PGA, he had a 4th recently at Kiowa, so that's also a positive. And then if we look back to last time he played Whistling Straits, he did miss the cut though at the PGA, but again, that's 6 years ago. Okay, moving on to Scotty Scheffler. Take a look at his putting splits. Again, the putter can hurt him. Bent's his 2nd worst surface, so do it. Again, he's a guy that can get super streaky from 15 to 20 feet out and can miss 3 to 5 footers left and right. That's his problem. But the positive with Scotty is he is from Texas and he can play in some crazy ass wind. Hits that low butter fade, gains over 2 strokes too in a wind. So something to think about there. Putter, as I mentioned, is what typically gets him. But he's been gaining, pretty solid off tee approach. If he can get the putter corrected, which I said he gained at the U.S. Open, gained almost 9 strokes. So it can happen. If we type in his Open experience, he's only played once, and that was recently this year. He had an 8th, and that's hard to kind of really do much with that. And then the PGA, though, at Kiowa, I did have an 8th, and I think that is a good comparable. So all positive on that front. So again, Scotty Scheffler, someone that can definitely handle the windy conditions. He's a rookie. Brooks Koepka was actually pretty shocked when I saw. Now, Bermuda's where he does his most damage, but Ben is still positive. But over his career, he does not play well in crazy wind. So that to me was interesting. You can see around the green and putting has kind of faltered over his last 10 rounds. Even showed more in depth here. He's just not gaining strokes with the putter like he typically does. And his results haven't been great. Now, of course, I believe the Tour Championship, right? He had he hit that root, and I think he pulled out on Friday, which hurt his wrist. But supposedly, he is 100% healthy. All is fine. That's what Steve Stricker said in his press conference yesterday. So nothing that should be a problem there. Let's go look at his Open history. Of course, again, that 6 I can't count, but the guy, this is why I was interested in, with a 4th and a 6th, a 10th, that when it comes up about the wind, that was just interesting. I would think he would be better. This is short of it because he has done pretty well at the Open, of course, any major. You've got Kiawah Island where he almost won it and just still can't believe he lost to Phil Mickelson. It's just mind-blowing. And then at the last time he was here at Whistling Straits for the PGA in 2015, he had a 5th place. So, good history. Okay, moving along. You got Xander. Again, I mentioned who should be put with Patrick Cantlay. And you got to remember, right now on DraftKings, when you look at a guy, it's going to, the pairing, right, says TBD. And just like at the WGC match play, you're going to get the points for the foursomes and also alternate that, the team gets, right? So if you're picking Xander, you're also getting Patrick Cantlay. And what I noticed was that if you can get one guy cheaper, and now, of course, singles is different, right? But the way I look at it is I'm always going to take the guy cheaper if I know they should be paired together. So there's the JT and Spieth. I would be pretty sure those guys are going to be paired together, right? And they're in a positive. We'll go over this when I get into my picks. But just a side note, just remember that if you're new to this, when they do this kind of match play scoring, where it's not about pars, birdies, eagles, and all that, it's all about, did you win the hole? Did you have the hole? Did you lose the hole? Is all how you're getting scored. So check that out when you're looking at DraftKings and the rules. just so you understand, there's also, if you win 3 holes in a row, there's different, ways they're going to be scoring this. Or, if you beat a guy 5-4, which means you are down, he's done, and you have 4 holes to play, you're going to get points for those 4 holes that, ultimately. Okay. On to Xander. So from a putting perspective, positive putter. Poa is his best, but Bent's right there. You can see, funny enough, over his career, wind, he gains, but not a lot. A half stroke, less than a half stroke, compared to some of the guys that do typically play very well in the wind. You can see around the green over his last 10 rounds, he's been struggling a little tiny bit, nothing crazy, but you can see it, even more kind of gleaming here. The putter's been off and on, hot or cold. And off the tee has been what's been shocking. Typically with Xander, he gained strokes off the tee, but the Tour Championship was definitely his best showing at the FedEx. Not a good showing at the BMW, and nothing great at the Northern Trust, also at the WGC. So he's kind of, if you look at his body of work over the last 5 events, nothing to be super excited about. But of course, remember, he came off that gold medal win, playing a ton of golf. I think he was a little fatigued, and I think he should be ready to rock. If we go look at his Open experience, pretty solid, right? I mean, a 26, a 41st, a second, a 20. That he's played in 4 of the Opens, has never missed a cut. That just itself is impressive. And then if we put in the PGA, he did not play in 2015, and he actually, remember, had that missed cut at Kiowa. So that's a little bit of I'd say a negative, we'll say. Moving down, Brent Wiesberger. We're probably not going to have a ton on Brent Wiesberger, but, he has played in a little bit of the PGA events. You can see the putter, which is kind of funny because when I think of him, I think of a great putter. So that's interesting. He actually, so far, I think out of all the guys we looked at, is the only one that's actually negative in win, which is also interesting. Being a European player, you think should do okay in the win. Again, let me just see how many events. So, yeah, he's got a bit that is pulling up from his past PGA experience. We pull up the Opens. Let's click that so we can see. He's made the cut, last 3, couple missed cuts, but nothing outstanding by any stretch of the imagination. Especially this one. I mean, the recent one at Royal St. George's, again, like I said, you really just could not have better conditions to play golf, period. He missed a cut at Kiowa and missed a cut when he played here at Whistling Straits. So, kind of an interesting. I think he did qualify purely on points. I don't think he was not a pick. He's a guy that I'm probably going to stay away from with a 10-foot pole. So if you want to know one of my fades, there's one of my fades. I don't see any reason why I would want to play Brent Wiesberger here. The course does not match him. Nothing makes sense to play him, as you can see from analytics and from the eye test. DJ, I already mentioned, of course, his experience here at Whistling Straits has been great. Gains on all surfaces over his life. Poa would be his best. He also gains. He can play in the wind. He hits, of course, as long as that butter fade off the tee is working. Used to be a drawer of the ball, right? Made the switch a few years back. Since then, he's been in Fuego. So great in the windy conditions. And it's kind of funny if you start to think about and look at all the guys that are on the team. Don't think that Steve Stricker did not know. Of course, he's from Wisconsin, born and raised. He knows what's going to be going on there from a wind side. And I'm sure that was part, now, of course, some of these guys qualify, but I'm sure that was a small, tiny, tiny bit knowing what these guys could do in the wind. Like Scotty Scheffler, right? A Texas guy, really never won an event on tour on a PGA event, but he was a pick. And I think that was part of it, is what he can do in the windy conditions. Of course, he's also a really good golfer, but I think that was a small part of what he was thinking about. All right, so we're looking at DJ. The recent Open at Royal St. George's, he had an 8th, so pretty good showing there. And then in 2015, oh wait, that's not what I'm looking at, the PGA. His overall experience, he's never actually won the Open, but he had a 9th back here in 2000. So pretty solid all in all. I mean, the guy was, he's number 2 ranked right now behind Rahm, was number 1 for a while. Of course, like I said, talked many times about it, that I just felt like after he won the Masters in 2020 that he was kind of like, okay, I've done it. Done everything I really wanted to do. And I just feel like his kind of desire or motivation dipped. But I guarantee you he is going to be super motivated for this. We look at the PGA. He had that miscut at Kiowa. and had a 7th, as I already talked about, back in 2015. So no issues from there. I like DJ. Let's move on to Tommy. So Tommy hasn't really had the best 2021 season. I'll just come out and say that. But the guy, when it comes to the Open and it comes to the Ryder, man, do not overlook Tommy Fleetwood. I'll just put it that simple. You can see from a putting split, Poe his best. We'll just call him neutral on bent, but the guy can handle the wind, but almost getting a stroke and a half in crazy windy conditions. And he's played, that's a lot of historical data. It's not a few events. Let's see what we've seen out of Tommy. So pretty much, as I said, the career-wise, nothing to really write home about. And the putter has not been where Tommy typically has it. But again, this is a different event, and I'm expecting that he'll be ready to rock and roll. So the Open, when Lowry won, he was second, and that was terrible conditions. So that's something to think about. But a pretty solid Open experience. So if you look at his last 4 Opens, that's strong. Had some miscuts before that. And then let's just go look at the PGA real quick. Miscut at Kiowa, so that's a ding against him. And he also had a miscut at Whistling Straits previously. But when it comes to the Ryder, I like Tommy. I'm not worried about playing him. All right, moving on to Tony Finau real quick. Try to keep moving this a little faster. He actually gains on bent, and typically, as we know, Tony, that's the issue, would be the putter. He is also an amazing player in the wind, how low and accurate he can hit the driver. So I really like him in windy conditions. I kind of already knew that, of course, about Tony. You can see the putter, funny enough, is a little shocking to me that over his last 5 rounds, he's gained 2.2 strokes. So the putter has been positive. Funny enough, it's been off the tee. That's actually kind of held him back. Of course, he had that win at the Northern Trust, which, ultimately I think pushed him over to get on the team. Before that, it might have been, he didn't have the best 2021 season, except, of course, that showing early on where he almost won the Genesis. So he had this crazy, the Amex, the Farmers, the Genesis, and then he kind of just started to kind of fall off a little bit. Let's go look at his Open experience. So this makes total sense that, he's had an amazing Open experience. And he's also had a nice showing at Kiowa with an 8th, and the one time he played here at Whistling Straits with 10th. So everything is pointing towards Tony being an excellent play, maybe even one of your captains. Harris English, if you don't know, Harris actually plays really well in the wind, almost again in a stroke and a half. He loves bent greens as his favorite putting surface. And I think from a value play, he's one of the best plays from a money. And I also said from a betting perspective, write this down, Harris English to get the most points for the U.S. team. He's 16-1. I've already made that bet. I've told you guys a couple times to make that bet. If you haven't, I think he's going to get played a ton. I think he's just such a steady, calm, even though he's a rookie technically, but I think Stricker saw what he wanted in him. And he's also been playing great golf. He had that little bit of injury after he won the Tournament of Champions, and then everybody got worried, and then, just been playing amazing. You can see off the tee an approach over to, been a little suspicious. Had a good shot at the BMW, but, at the tour, I mean, when I say suspicious, just not typically what we're typically out of him. Let's go look at his Open experience. So again, I mean, he's played in the Open, 6 times. He's made the cut 5 out of 6, so that's awesome. Best was a 15th way back in 2013. And then let's go look at the PGA. So he had a 64th this year at Kiowa. That's nothing to write home about. But when he did play at Whistling Straits back in 2015, he had a 48. So, and again, that wasn't at the height of his powers. A lot has changed with Harris English in the last, we'll say 1.5 years, 2 years. Terrell Hatton on the European side, he hasn't had that great of a year at all. I was kind of shocked. I was expecting some big things. Bent's actually his worst putting surface, but it's still a positive. And he also, funny enough, doesn't play that great in windy conditions. So when I mean that, if you're under a stroke, gaining a stroke, for me, with the lineup that we've got out there, He's someone that I'm probably going to look to fade, and there's on multiple reasons, right? I mean, you can see of his last 4 events, he's missed the cut 3 out of 4. His only decent showing was at WCC St. Jude, and then had a decent show at the Palmetto, and that's a little bit comparable course. That Palmetto, it was an interesting kind of tons of sand. It was a link style course, but it really didn't get the wind per se. I mean, we'll go look. I just want to make sure. Yeah, so calm and moderate. So there wasn't really any conditions there that were, but it was somewhat of a comparable course from a looks and how it would play if they would have had the win. Now you can see his open experience is kind of either hit or miss, right? Either he's a 5th or he's missing a cut, pretty much is how I see it. So again, I'd give that. That's so hard when they do that, but I'd give it like a C. And then let's go look at his PGA experience. So at Kiowa, he had a 38th, so nothing to write home about there. And then 2015, when he did play the PGA at Whistling Straits, he had a 25th, so that's positive. But for me, Hatton's another fade for me from a DFS, from every perspective. I'm not betting him, and I'm not. I'm just not. I am. Ian Poulter, I was pretty excited about from a value, and I still think he's a decent play. But he does not. So when you see these bars, doesn't play that great in a win. Again, when I see a European that's less than gaining a stroke in the win, that makes me a little nervous. Of course, his putter, when it comes to the Ryder Cup, it goes in Fuego. All the stroke gain analysis, you can kind of just throw out the window, just like the WGC Dell match play. I know we're we're just looking at all the little different things just to help you guys kind of make your decisions. But again, I do believe it comes down to, do you like this kind of format? And Poulter loves this kind of format. We just take a quick look what he's been doing. Approach around the green, putter's been solid. Off the tee, I mean, he's 280. 290, you can get it out there. It's a little bit of a fade, so I don't have a problem with him. I mean, he's pretty decent. His last good showing was at Charles Schwab and a WGC, which wasn't too long ago. So he had a 10th there. Let's go type in the PGA while I'm just here. So he had a 30th at Kiowa, so pretty good showing there. Miscut the last time he was at Whistling Straits in 2015 for the PGA. And then if we go over to his open experience, right, he's had way back some good showings, some miscuts recently, a 26 most recent. But again, just not the conditions I really want to look at. So Ian Poulter, honestly, for the price, I mean, I'm going to plug him in here or there. And I did bet him. I believe he's 12-1 to get the most points for Europe. Why not? I mean, I think on the European team, he's pretty solid play, and he's the best odds, if I remember correctly. Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic. He's not been playing that well either. Not that great of a season for him overall. You can see typically we think of him as a great putter, but really it's Bermuda is where he does his damage. The other two, nothing to write home about. He, almost gains a stroke in the win, so not bad. Not super exciting to make me really want to be all over him. And really it's just been the body of work, for the last, 15 tournaments. The FedEx, again, he missed a cut right out the bat at the Northern Trust. So did not move on. The Palmetto, that was a pretty junky field. I'm not looking at that as anything a 10th. The RBC, but that's way back in April. He had 5th. So, he I guess what probably a lot of the analysts, we saw this kind of opening of the season and thought, okay, here goes Fitzpatrick. And then you could kind of see come the summer, it just really nothing there. And I did not go through his European, stats. Again, it's hard to really look at that because total different field that you're playing against. Let's go look at his open experience. So pretty solid. I mean, if you look, he's played in 6 opens and he's made the cut 4 out of 6. And he's got a couple, top 25s. So I give that a B. I think, it's probably around a B minus. The recent PGA at Kiowa had a 23rd, so that's not bad. And he didn't play at Whistling Straits prior at the PGA, so nothing I can really go off there. All right, only 3 guys left, and then we're going to get out of here on the analysis, and I'll give you guys summarizing who I like. Of course, Jordan, typically elite with the putter, but it's all going to come down, is it on or is it off? That's the short of that. Jordan, and no shocker, even though he's a Texas kid, doesn't gain it yet a full stroke when he plays in crazy windy conditions. And, Jordan, as we know, can get a little wayward with the tee ball. And you can see that's what kind of came back, right? So he had this, I don't know, what is that, 6 to 8 events where he was gaining with the driver. And then all of a sudden, old Jordan to some degree kind of came back, especially at the Northern Trust. He also wasn't gaining with the putter. So he's been kind of off and on. An approach isn't where it was. I mean, he was, if you look at his summer, was just ridiculous on how well he played. So I'm not sure what Jordan we're going to get, to be honest. He does have experience here. He's done pretty well. I think he's going to be solid playing with JT and, in the alternate shot, the 4-ball and the foursomes. Let's go look at his Open experience, right? So, of course, he won the Open back in 2017. That was kind of like his last hurrah or big win. But he had a second here recently, did well. But again, at Royal St. George, it's just nothing around about. He also had a 9. So, I mean, he thrives at the Open. I mean, I give that an A rating. Short of it, I mean, not going to even try to downplay it. I mean, even through his issues with his game over the last few years, which, of course, this year has been a resurgence back to power, he still was doing all right at the Open. So the recent PGA event at QA had a 30th, so nothing great, but he also had a second back at the PGA at Whistling Straits, so that's pretty solid. Of course, Jason Day won that event and just tore apart the field when it came to stroking analysis. It was pretty crazy back in the Jason Day, back when he was amazing. Morikawa, right? This is going to be probably the game changer, right? And what I mean by that is, if Morikawa comes out and plays like we all know Morikawa can, and he's healthy, and the swing issues that were caused by the back problem is not there, it's going to be a huge plus for the U.S. team. You can see his putter is still suspect, but if it's on, it's game over for him when he plays. He can handle himself in the wind, gains over a stroke over his short career. We got about 1.5 years, 2 years of data on him. But you can see, this is unlike anything I've ever seen. I've seen him have a off couple days or maybe almost an off tournament with the putter, but I've never seen him lose tee to green. He lost 3 events in a row. It was crazy. I mean, the driver's not fading. It's going wherever. His approaches are missing the greens. We're not sticking them in 10 feet. I mean, so if he plays like we know, I mean, the guy, since he's been out, has just been crazy elite. Like he can. Of course, he just won the Open. Again, not the conditions that I really compare it to, but and he had an 8th at Kiowa. So, I mean, if you're doing a bunch of GPP lineups, you put him in, because I think, and I'll try to look at ownership. Let's do that when I get off at this last guy. I'll look at this Tuesday, but I'll look at projected ownership, because I would have to guess his projected ownership has to be pretty low. Last but not least is Lee Westwood. Probably one of the most Ryder Cup played. I mean, him and Colin Montgomery, was that his partner? They were like undefeated. I mean, they were just crazy. But you can see, funny enough, even though he's European, he does not play well in the wind, at least over his career. And what we have over here, again, that's not taking in all his European tour stats. You can see Bent is a negative. Poa is his best. Of course, he had that crazy run back in the Florida swing with Arnold Palmer and the Players. Then he was just burned out and tired, had a couple of miscuts. If you want to take a quick look, around the green and putting is where he's recently. Usually a very elite ball striker. Still pretty good. All right, the Open, 59th recently, but he had a 4th. Also, he was, I forgot about that. He was right there behind Lowry and Fleetwood back at Royal St. George's. So that's a positive. Overall, pretty solid Open experience. Again, I give that a B+. And then we look at the PGA. Nothing to write about this year at Kiowa. And then when he played at Whistling Straits, he had a 43rd. I'm kind of off on Westwood. Now, it's so hard, again, because you're trying to judge the guy when it comes to the Ryder Cup experience and all that. Like, the guy is just, top 2 out of the European team. But what I've seen out of the recent game and with the wind, I'm going to probably fade him a little bit. That's where I'm at with him. Okay, let's go look at ownership projections just real quick. Let's see what we got here. guess. So there's just not enough data. So not enough people's built lineups. And I don't think a lot of people are going to build a whole lot of mass lineups. I don't even know. I'd be shocked if you even can, to be honest. But I was just curious who's the least owned guy, at least with this data that we have out there. Lee Westwood right now. And then Wiesberger. So if I had to give you my fades, just to summarize, Wiesberger, Westwood, Terrell Hatton, I'm not too excited about at all. Morikawa, I can't do it. I think Victor, I'm probably not going to play that much. Fitzpatrick, probably also. So that kind of gives you just some ideas if you want to know who I'm not too super excited about. Okay, so I'm going to start with Team Europe, give you my top 5 guys that I'm going to be kind of my core play from the European side. And then I'm going to do same thing for the US side. So real quick, of course, John Rahm, I mean, I'm not worried about the Fortinet. I still have no idea why he played there. The guy can play in the crazy wins. The guy is the best player in the world right now. He is their, we'll say, captain, their main guy that they're going to have to lean on. I think he's going to be great. I also like Tommy. Now, I know, you could say, well, hey, he hasn't had that great of a season. But the guy in this event, he's also going to play a ton. So I have no problem. I want to play Tommy. I like Paul Casey. Again, can handle the win. He's got the experience, played a ton of Ryder Cups, and the guy's elite tee to green, and he can handle the win. Gains about a stroke. Sergio Garcia, funny enough, I mean, again, he has the most points on his whole team. He's going to be leaned on. Of course, it's going to come down to the putter with him, but of course, can handle the win. And I mentioned him alone has just as much points as all the other USA players at this point, if you added up his career in the Ryder Cup. Shane Lowry, right, is just freaking amazing. And it's actually, of course, as I mentioned, the best win player there is. So he gains over 2 strokes. It's all about the putter with him, but that's going to be my core 5 that I'm going to be using for the European team. And then again, I mentioned, there's this pod system that's going out right now. And my favorite, and so you got to remember, I'll explain this as I kind of go through. So Tony Finau is my favorite, of course, for the first 2 days. You're going to get whoever Tony's paired with, but everything about Tony in this course and his experience at the Open and what he's done here is just amazing. That he can also, he's one of the best win players that we have. Harris English, I really like him, as I mentioned, can handle the win. I think he's going to get played a ton because he's so flexible to whoever you want to put him with. I have no issues with that. I think he was right up there. Could have been, PGA Player of the Year, no question. Scotty Scheffler, again, of course, Texas, one of the best win players. Yes, he is a rookie, but I have no problems of rostering him, and he's going to be one of my favorite plays. Of course, DJ, again, super experienced. This was the one. It was kind of, to be honest, I was between DJ and JT. I think either one, but I think DJ wants a positive Ryder Cup experience. He's, our kind of, I look at him as our main captain from experience. He's number 2 ranked player in the world. I think he's going to come out and play amazing. The guy can definitely handle himself around this course and then the win. Then last but not least, I'm going with Patrick Cantlay. Been in great form. Can also handle himself to win. And I'm also going with Patrick because I'm getting Xander. Now, funny enough, I think Xander's cheaper, but these two are for sure are going to be paired together for all the foursomes and all, everything. No doubt in my mind. Just the same with JT and Jordan Spieth. So now that's not been written, or I haven't actually heard that come out, but that is all expectations from everybody. So I like those 2 pairings, and they're going to be, kind of, again, the key cog pieces. So with that said, that's my top plays. I already kind of talked about the betting side. I actually have money on Europe right now because it is plus money. And, it's just right now where I'm leaning. It's not much. I didn't go nuts by any stretch. Oh, and of course, funny enough, your best win player on this team is Scotty Scheffler. So just keep that in mind. All right, you guys, that's it. I hope that helps. I'm super excited. I'm sure you are too. It's been a long time since we had some Ryder Cup action. Hey, I would love to hear from you guys who you like in the Ryder Cup. And this is the only show I'm doing because, like I said, for this week. But I think it gives you guys a ton of insights that a lot of people don't have. So hopefully that helps you build your lineups. And just keep in mind, think about the guys that you think are going to get played the most. Think about, from a pricing standpoint and think about who they're going to be paired with. And also I'm not going to have a problem building an all Europe team. I'm going to do a little bit of that. I can build all, it's not so much about bombers and all that. I think it's more of, you just got to figure out, first off, who do you think is going to play the most, who they're going to be paired with, and then that's really going to give you the advantage, I think, from the DFS perspective. All right, enjoy. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back with you guys next week. I forgot now. I think Sanderson Farms. I think we're heading to CC of Jackson. So that's the next tournament coming up on the PGA. All right, guys. Hey, by the way, click that subscribe button. I'm still trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Keep me doing this for you guys. Hit that like button. And if I can help you guys, if you have anything about the Ryder Cup, like I said, I'm curious to hear you guys like. And ask me any questions. I'll hit on YouTube comments or on Twitter. All right, guys. Talk to you later.